Welcome to 24 Hour Sports. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As you can see in today's title, I'm revealing my NBA tiers. Feel free to comment and give any feedback on what you think about these tiers, what you think about these teams. Are there any underrated players who are having underrated seasons? Any overrated players having overrated seasons? I just want to know what you feel about the current state of these NBA teams, the current state of the NBA in general. But without too much talking, let's get into the video. In my very bottom tier, I have the teams that are scouting Victor Wembanyama. You see the Pistons, you see the Hornets, you see the Rockets, Spurs, Magic, Thunder. These are all teams who I believe their season is ultimately over without it being over. Right now, they're just playing for cardio, playing for development, getting these young guys experience, getting them in roles, and they have bright futures, but right now this season is just not it. Going into the next tier, we have the trade deadline Warriors. I believe there are some solid teams in this tier, like a Pacers, like a Knicks, teams that we see winning a couple games. But ultimately, these are the teams that I would say if they make the playoffs, there's no doubt that they'll be one and done. So when the trade deadline comes, they're either going to be looking to sell or buy. A lot of contending teams will be looking to these teams, trying to inquire about some key players who can add depth or make a major impact to their roster. And this tier right here going to get a lot of people in their feelings, but these are the teams that I believe are good in name only. We see the Lakers, we see the Bulls, we see the Hawks, Warriors, and Heat. I believe these are all teams that have the resume, that have the aura amongst their team that we just think, okay, they're playing the Lakers, this should be a good game. They're playing the Warriors, this should be a good game. This is a good team. They always have a good team, but this year, these teams are good in name only. And I believe these teams will be tough playoff outs. You still don't want to face these guys in a 7-game series. But right now, they're just not playing the same level of basketball that we're used to. These teams are not the same. Going on to the next tier, we have fun to watch. And I want to put in parentheses any given night because I believe on any given night, these teams can give you a problem. They can win a game. Another tier of teams that you don't want to see in a 7-game series. The first team in this tier, the Dallas Lucas. Like I said, the Dallas Lucas, not the Dallas Mavericks, because Luka is everything to this team. He's in that tier of what we've seen with the early LeBron. When you're so good and you have success so early, sometimes the team fails to put necessary talent around you. And I just don't think that he has necessary talent around him on that team to compete at the highest level. The Sacramento Kings, De'Aaron Fox is playing out of his mind. He's playing like the point guard that we saw at Kentucky, that we saw when we drafted him. He's that guy. And another key addition that I think came to this team was Kevin Huerter, previously on the Atlanta Hawks, and now he's came in. He's just added shooting to this Sacramento Kings team, something they've struggled with in past years. They got depth. Malik Monk. They got Rashawn Holmes. They got DeMontis Sabonis. He didn't play last night, but he's still a key factor on this team. Keegan Murray. I like everything about this team. Harrison Barnes. This is a good, young, talented team, and it's going to be interesting to see how far they can go in the playoffs. This is a team that I don't think will be one and done. They get the right matchup, they can make it in round 2. And the last team in this tier is the Portland Trail Blazers. Like I said, not a very high contending team, but I still think they're fun to watch. I like to see Dame Time. I like to see Anthony Simons. I like to see Jeremy Grant. This is a good young basketball team, and I believe they're headed in the right direction. Maybe they can string off a couple wins and get them a good playoff seed, but still, they're fun to watch. In this tier, we have dangerous when healthy. In parentheses, these teams are never healthy. And it's frustrating because these are the same teams who can be in a higher tier if they play consistently, if they have consistent health. But I just don't trust it right now. I have to see it more over the longevity of the season. How does this pan out? But first team we're going to look at is the Memphis Grizzlies. Desmond Bane is only in his 3rd game back. And last night we seen them lose to the Phoenix Suns in a game that they just got outplayed. They didn't look like they could contend with that team. They got ran off the floor. The Phoenix, they shot well. Everything just went wrong for the Memphis Grizzlies. Jaren Jackson, another guy who's been fighting injuries. John Morant. He has an injury history. So we want to see how that plays over the longevity of the season. Even in the Golden State series last year, John Morant got hurt. The series went left. So I just want to see, because I think this is an ultra talented team, a good core. Everything is solid about this team, but they have to stay healthy. Going to the New Orleans Pelicans, this team, everyone wants to put them in the contender level, and I understand a bit of that optimism. Last year, Jose Alvarado coming from out of bounds, getting steals on Chris Paul. They played a tough series in that playoffs, but I just want to see, how can Zion stay healthy? How can CJ stay healthy? Because if they do, This is one of those contended teams, like we've said. Jonas Valanciunas, Brandon Ingram, Jose Alvarado, Herbert Jones. Everything is on this team. They have a nice, solid core. They have depth like we want to see in the playoffs. But they just got to stay healthy. Going to the Los Angeles Clippers, this is the most controversial team because you got Kawhi Leonard, you got Paul George, two of the most highly regarded two-way players that we've seen in the past decade. And Kawhi Leonard just recently got back into the lineup. They've been winning a couple games. So this is another team who's going to be interesting to see. And they're dangerous when healthy. But the theme of this tier is these teams are never healthy. Going into the next tier, we got scary talented. Cleveland, Philly, Phoenix. How much do I have to say about these teams? Cleveland, we got Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, Jared Allen, Darius Garland. They're playing well. Donovan Mitchell is playing himself into the MVP conversation. So there's not too much that we have to say about that. But when I say scary talented, it has to be the next step. I say scary talented because these are the three teams who I believe can beat anybody. But I think ultimately the aura around them is that they're going to come up short in the playoffs. Cleveland, we just haven't seen them go deep in the playoffs just yet with this core. Philly, they've always gotten good seeds, but Joel Embiid, if it's not an injury, James Harden, we know his playoff history. Tyrese Maxey is really the only guy I can depend on to even stay healthy and perform in the playoffs, and that's really what's holding this team back, even with their head coach, Doc Rivers, blowing series leads. So I believe this is a scary, talented team. But how far can they really make it if we're seriously talking about playoff longevity? Going to the Phoenix Suns, I'm out on the Phoenix Suns. They're playing good. Devin Booker is Devin Booker. It just recently got reported that he's going to miss a month, so I want to see how they hold up in this stretch without Devin Booker. But DeAndre Ayton and the coach, Chris Paul a little older. He's not getting any younger. I seen them play against the Grizzlies last night, and like I said, I like what I saw. Mikal Bridges, all of those guys, but still, when it ultimately comes to the playoffs, I just don't trust them. Ever since they lost to the Milwaukee Bucks, they haven't been the same team. I seen them blow the lead to the Dallas Mavericks in the playoffs, and that left a bad taste in my mouth. So right now, as far as to me, they just have to prove everything. And I'm speaking in terms of going far in the playoffs. We know this is a good regular season team. They've had good regular season records the past couple years, but I don't want to see that. I want to see playoff depth. And that's what I'm looking for from this team. And the next tier, I have the real contenders. This is starting to get closer to the teams that we're going to be seeing playing for titles. I have Milwaukee, Brooklyn, and Denver. Starting off with Milwaukee, they have the best player in the NBA. Giannis Antetokounmpo is the best player in the NBA, and it's not even close. So we have that. Chris Middleton coming off an injury. I think he's only going to get better. Brook Lopez, Bobby Portis, Drew Holiday. I like this team, and they have experience. They have chemistry. They've been playing together for a long time, and that's always good when it comes to these 7-game series because who can you lean on? You know your teammate got your back because you've been doing this for the longest. Going over to Denver, this is a team I'm kind of wary of, but every time I watch them, they show me something. And it's not a lot of teams that can match up with the Denver Nuggets. Michael Porter Jr. and Jamal Murray, I watched them take over the third and fourth quarters last night against the Sacramento Kings. That was a game they had no business winning, but their star players stepped up and played like stars. Michael Porter Jr. having over 20 points, playing exceptional, shooting good from three. This is what I want to see from this team. Jokic is on the verge of potentially winning his third straight MVP. But another thing, my only concern with this team, dangerous when healthy. Jamal Murray and Michael Porter Jr. have been known to be fighting injuries these past few seasons. So I think the important thing for the Nuggets, if these guys need to take a night off, just let them do it. Try to stay healthy for the playoffs because that's what matters. Don't focus too much on the regular season. You're one of those teams who knows. All you need is a healthy team going into the playoffs. It don't matter who you're playing. I think this team can match up with anybody in the West as long as they're healthy and come out on top. Right now, this is my favorite in the West. Going over to the Brooklyn Nets, they started off the season horribly. They started off Steve Nash, the Kyrie Irving situation. Everything was just focused on non-basketball. There were a lot of antics, a lot of reporters, a lot of social media revolved around this team. And it just wasn't a lot of room for basketball, focusing on how the team can play. The interesting thing about this team, though, defense has been their calling card. Kyrie Irving, Kevin Durant, Nick Claxton, Joe Harris, Seth Curry. But defense has been their calling card. So I think that's showing me a team that wants to win And they got the two juggernauts still. They got Kyrie and KD. So in a 7-game series, who can stop these guys consistently? We seen the Boston Celtics do it last season, but I know that left a bad taste in the Nets' mouth. I don't think there's no way that Boston can shut these guys down like they did again in another playoff rematch. But this is the team that I have as another real contender just because of how they turned it around and how they've been playing this recent stretch of basketball. Honestly, if they keep going on this continuous pace, they'll end up being the best team with the best seed in the East. That's the pace that they're on. But going to my clear-cut favorite for right now, I got the Boston Celtics. MVP favorite Jason Tatum. And I just can't say enough good things about this team. They're #1 in offensive efficiency and points per game. Jaylen Brown has become a legitimate second option. Jason Tatum is averaging 31 points, 8 rebounds, and 4 assists. Marcus Smart has improved his playmaking. They've added Malcolm Brogdon to add improved playmaking off of the bench. Everything is just good with this team. And it may come off as a bit of a nitpick, but the only concern I have with this team, they're not playing defense like they were last year. They're not a top 5 defense, top 3 defense like they were last year, but they still got those guys. So I'm confident that if it goes to a 7-game playoff series, Marcus Smart, Jaylen Brown, Derek White, Jason Tatum, they can all lock in and really just lock up defensively. Robert Williams, Al Horford. So that's not really a concern for me because I know in the playoffs, it'll get serious. But that's it for me, and those are my current NBA tiers, which are bound to change in the coming weeks, maybe even in the coming days. So just let me know how you feel about these tiers currently. Where do you reside with these teams? Where do you stand on these teams? Let me know how you feel about the players on these teams, and just chop it up in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. We out.